Welcome to episode 2 of How to Play Ambient Guitar. If you haven't seen episode 1 yet, check it out here before you go any further and come right back. Alright, so you've seen episode 1, you know we cover the basics of ambient swells. What I'd like to do today is take the homework that I gave you on episode 1 and expand it a little bit and look into voicing ambient swell guitar chords. Did I say that right? Guitar chords we use with ambient swells. All right. So the homework, basically, I had you play an E minor, D, G major to C major, just bar chords. And by the way, if you look at my foot here, you'll see that I've got the same basic setup as on episode 1. I'm going into a compressor. This is a Wampler Ego. Then going into a Morley little alligator volume pedal, and then going into my my Strymon Dig delay. You can use whichever compressor, volume pedal, and delay you have available to achieve a similar sound. So anyhow, let me show you the homework I gave you on episode 1, just to review. Okay, it's a nice chord progression. As a matter of fact, it's off of one of my songs that are on the Chords of Orion Slumber album. Anyhow, I'll include a link to that song in the video and in the description below. What we're going to do today, though, is kind of break down that chord progression and try to make it a little bit nicer. I mean, it sounds nice the way it is, but it's a little plain. And if you're like me and you may use multiple delays, or maybe you've got a chorus involved or a reverb involved in addition to the delay, things can get quite muddy when you're playing full bar chords. So how do we clean that up a little bit? Well, the key is, in my view, not to play all 6 notes. The key is to play just a few notes from each chord to kind of accentuate the specific intervals that you're looking for. So let's do a quick review of chords. Many of you already know this, but just bear with me. 2 minutes, just let me review this. So let's look at a C, just a standard C chord. Okay, you probably know that a C major chord is C, E, G, right? 3 notes. What you may or may not be aware of is that you can change the order of those 3 notes. You may have a root grouping of the notes, which is C, E, G, but you can also invert the intervals. And as a matter of fact, they're called inversions. So for example, in a C chord, if I want to start the chord on the E note, I'm playing a first inversion chord. Let me give you an example. Okay, so here's the root chord. First inversion. And then if I want to take that 5th, which would be the G, and put that in the bottom of the chord, that would be a second inversion. Alright, so why am I telling you this? Well, the reason is that you can take advantage of these chord inversions and intervals to play partial chords as you're doing your volume swells and really kind of clean up, again, the overall tone and again accentuate exactly what you're looking for. So let's take the chord progression and let's clean it up. We'll add my delay back in. Let's take a look at the E minor. Okay, so if we look at the E minor chord, the standard bar chord, you know, we've got all 6 notes involved. But what if we took just the E? Okay, so that would be the 5th string on the 7th fret, and then took a G on the 2nd string on the 8th fret. So that would be E and G. Let's try that. of nice, isn't it? It's very clear sounding too. So I've got an E, and then I've got a G, which is again the 8th fret on the 2nd string. All right, so that's a lot cleaner than this. Again, they're both nice sounding, but if you want less notes and accentuated notes, playing 2 notes instead of 6 is a nice option. Now, what about that D chord? Well, if we just slide these 2 notes down to the D on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and then the F sharp, which would be the 7th fret of the 2nd string, we get a D major chord. Pretty nice, huh? Let's try that again. E minor, to D major, and now we've got to deal with the G major. Again, here's the full bar chord. You may like that, you may want it for your song, but in this case, I didn't want that full chord. So maybe if I just play the 6th string on the 3rd fret, which is a G, right? And then the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, which is a D. So that would be a G and a D. It leaves out the B, so it's neither major or minor. It's just kind of a modal sounding G. Let's try that. I like it. You could also just leave that 2nd string open and have the B, which would give you a distinct G major. Very clear sounding. Finally, we have the C major. Now on my song, I don't play a standard C major, I play a C9. So that would actually be, if you played a full chord, it would be C, E, G, D. So D would be the 9th, an octave plus 2 above the lower C. In this case though, I'm just going to play a C and a D. So that would be the C, which would be the 3rd fret on the 5th string, and the D, which would be the 3rd fret on the 2nd string. Let's listen to that. I'm a big fan of 9th chords. If you listen to much Chords of Orion music, you'll hear a lot of 9ths hanging around because I really like the tonality of 9ths. So let's try that whole chord progression together. E minor, D, G, and then C, add 9. All right, I'm going to show you now another way to play the G chord and the C chord to kind of keep it in line with what we're doing with the E minor and the D major. So this is an alteration or an alternate version. So let's try this. G, I can actually play with a B in the bass. So that would be first inversion. So this would be your A string, your 5th string on the 2nd fret, and still the 2nd fret on the 2nd string on the 3rd fret. Let's listen to that. You hear that? You don't get that low G. You get it's an unresolved kind of sound. Now, for the C chord, what we can do is simply kind of move up. So I'm going to play the C, which would be that 3rd fret on the 5th string, and I'm going to play an E. So that would be the major, right? Which would be the 2nd string on the 5th fret. All right. Now, let's listen to the entire chord progression with this version of the G and the C chords. Isn't that nice? I would encourage you to play around with this, practice it a little bit. If you're not used to playing different inversion chords, try this out. Now, what about the right hand? I do need to discuss that a little bit. So some of you are used to simply strumming an entire chord. And if I only want to play 2 notes out of the chord, I've got a problem. You may have noticed over the last few minutes that I'm actually holding the pick. Sorry, I'm looking at my camera monitor here. I'm holding the pick with 2 fingers, but I'm also using another finger to pick a string. We'll get into this a little bit more in future episodes, but this is really the beginning of what I call hybrid picking. So it's a combination of flat picking and finger picking. So you've got a couple of options. You can use the thumb and a finger. Okay, so that works pretty cool. If you're like me, or if you want to learn this, you can use the hybrid picking. So let me hold my guitar up here. So I don't know how well you can see this, but I've got the pick on the 5th string and my middle finger on the 2nd string, and I'm going to kind of pull them together to play the 2 notes. Okay. All right. So you can practice that. You've got a choice. Thumb and whichever finger is comfortable, or pick and whichever finger is comfortable. Your choice. Give it a try though, and see how you do with that. If you're not used to this, if you're already a finger picker, finger style guitar player, piece of cake. You already know how to do this. Let me show you one other thing here before we close out this episode. Once you've got this chord progression down, with these chord inversions, you can begin to extend them. And again, if you listen to the song off of Slumber, again, I'll include the link, you'll hear some of the things that I do. Let me give you just a couple of examples to consider. On the E minor chord, what if I played the E and the G, as I have, but then added in a high C with my little pinky finger on the 8th fret of the high E string. So that would be a C. So let's try that. But I'm not going to play them all 3 together. I'm going to play the 2 and that together and then bring in that high C. Check this out. Let me do that again. All right. Now, what if I brought in a B, which would be that E string on the 7th fret, in on the D major chord? Yeah. And what if I brought a high G in on my G chord? So that would be the 3rd fret. You kind of get the picture of what's going on here? You've got a lot of options for extending these types of chords. After you practice a little bit, you can go a little faster and you can really begin to play around with a lot of partial chords. Again, we'll be looking at some more examples as we move along through different episodes. But this is, I think, a good first start at working with chord inversions and different chord voicings as you're looking to play ambient swells. Well, there you have it. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel for more content, in particular, more episodes of how to play ambient guitar. And as always, I'll see you all on the next video.